VLOOKUP is one of the most used functions in Excel. In Access, we join tables all the time. Sometimes we need to take values from a lookup table and bring them into our data set. On the left-hand side, I have invoice, SKU, and quantity. This came from our IT department. It's exactly what I asked for, but not what I needed. I really need description in that data on the left. Well, luckily, somewhere on my computer, I have a table that you see in column I and J that converts SKU to description. It's a simple process to use VLOOKUP, which stands for vertical lookup, to find the corresponding value from the table on the right and bring it back to the table on the left. Let's build one. Choose cell D2 and type equal VLOOKUP. First thing we have to specify is what SKU we want to try and find, so we'll click cell B2. Click the comma, and now Excel is asking for a table array. The important thing about this table array is the SKU, the value we're looking up, must be in the leftmost column of the table. I'll click in cell I2, hold down the Shift key while I use End, Down, and then Right to select my table array. Very important that I hit the F4 key here. As I copy this formula down, I always want to make sure that I'm pointing at rows 2 to 29. Type the comma. Next, Excel wants to know which column we want, and this is the column and table array. If we ask for 1, we would just get the SKU again. If we ask for 2, we'll get the description from the second column of the table. Finally, we have to put either true or false. It's nice in Excel 2007 that we have the autocomplete here guiding us to remind us that false means an exact match. Almost all the time you're going to use false, especially here if we had an SKU that was similar to one of our SKUs. That doesn't mean it's the same thing, and you wouldn't want to bring that description over inappropriately. Control-Enter to select the formula. Worked perfectly. I'll double-click to copy down, and most of the time, it worked. However, in row 6, there's one value that's returning an NA. That's strange. I wonder what's going on. Maybe BG33-9 is a brand new product, or maybe someone miskeyed the product when they were entering the invoice. I can see on the right-hand side that BG33-8 is there. I could probably make some calls and see if that's really what the customer bought. If I change to the correct SKU, the VLOOKUP works. VLOOKUP is a very, very powerful function. At my last day job, whenever I was a manager, one of my job requirements was I didn't care whether you had a college degree, but you had to be able to use VLOOKUPs in your sleep. Let's move on to another example, and I'll show you how VLOOKUP can go wrong. Select the VLOOKUP 2 worksheet. Now here I want to enter the exact same VLOOKUP formula. Equal VLOOKUP, B2, specify my table, hit the F4 key, ask for the second column, and type false. This time, I don't get the right result. I'll copy the formula down, and I don't get the result anywhere. So I start to look, and I can see in B3 we have BG33-3, and in I2 I can see we have BG33-3. I can match these up. What's Excel's problem? How come it can't see the match? While those values look the same, one of them is probably different. Let's do some investigation. I'm going to click on cell B3 and hit the F2 key and watch the insertion point. The flashing insertion point shows that there's several spaces after BG33-3. Let's go look in our lookup table. Choose cell I2 and hit F2, and here we see the flashing insertion point is immediately after the 3. Somehow, one of these tables came from a different source, where they left the trailing spaces. Now this is the easy one to fix. If the problem is in column B, we just need to go back to our formula, edit the formula using F2, and use a function called trim. The trim function will trim leading and trailing spaces off of a text value. Works perfectly. We'll copy it down. Now there's a few products in there, the BG33-9 and the CR50-4, which were either keyed wrong or are brand new. You'll see in CR50-4, the problem there is that there's an internal space, whereas on the right-hand side, there is no space. Trim is great at taking several internal spaces and turning it into one space. So for example, if I had the letter A, space, 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 the letter B, trim would change that into A space B. It will not get rid of the internal spaces. I probably have a job here to go through and fix these, or I could use edit replace on column B to take the spaces out. For the most part though, the trim function worked perfectly. Let's go on to the next worksheet and see what happens if the problem is reversed. I'm going to enter the VLOOKUP formula again. B2, specify my table array, making sure to hit F4, ask for the second column and false. This time none of them work, and when I look in cell B2, it appears to be fine. There's no trailing spaces. Let's look in cell I2, hit F2, and this time the trailing spaces are in our lookup table. Well, I'm just going to have to stop and fix the problem. I'll come to cell H2 and enter a formula of equal trim of I2. Copy that formula down. It's interesting here, the double-click the fill handle trick works provided there's data to the left, or in this case, data to the right. I've now removed the trailing spaces. I need to change these formulas to static values. I'll use Control-C to copy, go right, and use paste values. There we go. Instantly, most of my VLOOKUPs work. I still have the problem with BG33-9. We have to figure out if that was miskeyed or new. And the CR50-4, now on the right-hand side, has an internal space. But 90% of them worked. VLOOKUP, very, very powerful. It definitely should be something in your toolkit. It's great for bringing descriptions when the IT department just gave you part numbers or rep numbers or account numbers or whatever.